Mostly hiring people with heart was my thing. If you've got your heart still and it has not been buried and lost, then you will be able to communicate. Developing those people skills, those human skills, those communication skills, then allows for them to be in an environment where they feel respected. You treat people with respect and you really want them to succeed and you're on their side.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Activating Curiosity. I am Ryan Ware. And if you're enjoying these conversations, be sure to follow us on all of the platforms, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on YouTube at Activating Curiosity. Today's guest is Dina Fodero, and she has not spent her career in the construction industry, but she has spent it working with women who are helping other women. And she has been able to have those in her orbit see some of the similar challenges that she was facing in her career and leading teams and leading a business, to begin to think about how she can help those in the construction industry, especially women, and also helping men and understanding how to navigate some of those conversations, because we tend to ignore the invisible side of the industry. And she is focused on what she terms I-PPE, Invisible Personal Protective Essentials. And we'll talk about safety all the time on project sites, but we don't like to talk about those mental health sides of our industry. And we want to take this conversation in a way that it provides us a space to pause and see the humanity that is within the project sites and within our offices, so that both women and men can have a much better experience in their day-to-day work and on project sites. That way we can deliver better projects for our communities and for our clients. Because if we're unwilling to recognize the humanity, we're just bringing yesterday's solutions into a problem that we're facing today and in the future. And there is no way that we can continue to build all of the things that are required by taking those practices forward. Dina Fodero, welcome to Activating Curiosity.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation because you're what I typically deem an outside influencer. So you're someone who spent your career not even really adjacent to the construction industry. You were spending it doing something you were passionate about, but in the last few years, something has sort of piqued your curiosity, if you will, to kind of take a look at the construction industry and start to think about your life experiences and how you can help women in construction, but all of us in construction better understand a lot of the challenges that we have when it comes to really human complexity or mental complexity versus really the technical side. But before we get into what you're focused on today, Dina, can we just take a step back and talk a little bit about the things that you were seeing as you were running a business, working with women and helping women throughout your career, that it has really become this foresight for what you're planning to do and what you've been doing till we get to present day? Like, what was it that you were noticing throughout your career? This episode of Activating Curiosity is brought to you by Overcast Innovations, architects, designers. Have you ever conducted a project walkthrough, looked up at the ceiling and wondered, when did that decision get made? Not because it was necessarily wrong, but because it wasn't your original design. Most have experienced that moment. Somewhere between design, coordination, procurement, and installation, decisions get made that shape a space. The question is whether design could have been preserved if questions were asked and answered earlier in the process. Overcast Innovations is helping project teams rethink how building systems are coordinated by bringing key decisions forward and reducing complexity before work reaches the field. Because protecting design starts long before installation ever begins. Learn more at overcastinnovations.com.
I think it's an opportunity for me to actually reflect on one commonality that I would have with the maybe people entering the trades of construction. And that being that academically, I really didn't have it very easy. My parents traveled back and forth to Greece. We lived there for 2 years once, came back to Canada, went back to Greece for another year, came back to Canada. So academically, it was a struggle for me. So for me, my choice was to do something that I felt I would be good at. And it was a skill of aesthetics. And that would be very similar with probably a lot of people that enter the trades because they're very good with their hands. They're very good with just physically doing things and they enjoy that. I would imagine those are the people that want to get into the trades, especially on site. And just like the construction industry, the beauty industry allows for incredible opportunities for entrepreneurship. There's just so many avenues you can take and so much freedom and success that you can find in that industry, which would be identical to like the construction industry. My partner has been in the construction industry for 35 years. He was young and he was trying to find his way in something that he could do and do well at. And construction seemed to answer sort of the boxes or the check marks of what would be a good future. And in that journey, again, for him, so much has opened up. He's learned so much and he's reached a level again in the construction industry. On my side, what I ultimately had a dream of doing was opening up an aesthetic school and spa. And when I did that, I really walked in with the aesthetic skills, hands-on. I could teach it. I know how to do it. I dabbled with some entrepreneurial stuff. But the area that I didn't have any experience with was really creating culture. Or I didn't study it. I wasn't trained on it. I didn't really even know that it existed at that time. But because of my character and my personality, being the underdog when I lived in Greece and going to school in Greece and always behind in school, and in Canada, being the underdog again, because my English skills were not very up to the speed they should be. So I had to be put behind one grade, for example. That feeling of somebody feeling like they don't belong or they're not good enough is something that I definitely, I'm grateful that I experienced because I think that's where my empathy and my love for people comes very naturally for me. I just didn't realize that it was going to be the most significant part of the work that I would be doing running the school. So I'm learning marketing, I'm learning advertising, I'm learning, I'm putting together the curriculum, getting approved by the Ministry of Education, but at the same time, I've got all these people. And these people are, it was an amazing experience because, it was at a time where you may not have met a girl from Iran. You may not have had a student from Bermuda. Then you'd have a student so the concept of multiculturalism was really in a bubble, you could say, in our school. And that bubble was created with the empathy of we are all equal. No one is better than the other person. And ultimately, recognizing what strengths and maybe challenges that individual had and helping them to rise and succeed was not just my job. It became something that everybody was accountable for.
One, it's something that you can tell as an individual you're passionate about. But I'm going to step back to something that you said early on, which was you had life experiences that you weren't in control of. Your parents were in control. You were moving between locations and spaces, and you had to learn to adapt an environment that wasn't always comfortable as a human. You were able to, again, a lot of us don't, as young people, we don't recognize those situations. Like we're not as aware of it. We feel that pain or feel whatever emotion is in that moment, but we're not sure how that's going to relate as we get further downstream in our own life and how we can utilize those to strengthen our own personal relationship with ourselves, with others, but see the other human that you were starting to describe as you got into business. You're like, how can I take these things and put them into whether you knew what culture was? Because again, defining it like culture is experienced, whether it's named or really put on the wall or really a focus area. People still feel culture, right? Like we still go through that based off of how leaders show up and how, everybody shows up to sit in their space or location within a business. So you talked a little bit about how you wanted to take these skill sets that you had, apply them not only to those that you were teaching, but you were also starting to think of like, okay, I've got to run a business. I've got to think about that entrepreneur piece. But I'm curious, as you talked about like culture and working with all of, not just culture of the business, but everyone's bringing their own lived experiences into your school. They're all coming from different regions and different areas, which I think is true when you flip that to construction piece. That same thing happens in the construction industry. We're all bringing different lived experiences onto project sites from a different company, from a different region, whatever it is. But just talk a little bit more about what you saw during that time, and then we'll kind of, get into present day a little, in a little bit later. But just what were some of those things that you were seeing and learning as you were going through as a leader from that culture side, from everybody's lived experiences?
I think that because I really set the tone, and it wasn't like policies, procedures, and books and written out. It was your basic conversation when they were registering to enter the program, what is acceptable and what is not. And the one part that was not acceptable was negative gossip about somebody else. And if that was to occur, then unfortunately they would get a warning. And after a second warning, then they wouldn't be able to continue the program and they'd have to sign off on that. So then they are responsible for how they're going to handle themselves. So that's sort of a very official way of doing it. But at the same time, it's in the back of their mind and they think twice about maybe engaging in conversations. And I'm not going to say that, I had a school full of fairies, although fairies were our logo, because of course there were conversations that may have gone to one direction at some point or another direction. I had to bring them in. I had to sort through it, clearly let them know where it's at if they're wanting to be in the program. And that part was part of the foundation for the rest of it to actually take a better place, because if you're not in a negative headspace or jealous or competing or gossiping amongst each other, especially with women, then it allows everybody to realize that they are one of a kind and that they can appreciate the one of a kindness. And the highest level, of course, is that they're all supporting each other after, right? My job is all of a sudden in their hands. The part that I would be not able to do on a daily basis as far as communicating with them because I'm busy doing other things, but on their side, they're watching them inspire, support, and bond was such an exciting thing for me. It was one of the most exciting things that I realized that I had the capacity of doing. So, yeah, I remember looking in the mirror one day and just looking at myself and going, "Wow, people, relationships, how you treat them, make them feel safe." And just watching the flowers bloom.
You're talking about providing that psychological safety and that space and room, not only for yourself to grow, but for those that are in a school to grow, to understand like, hey, life feels like a competition every day, right? Like
yes.
The job market is what it is. And I can think about women in construction as you're talking about this. It's like we're all fighting for our own relevancy in our own job and trying to move up if we want to, and where's our career go, and do I have a career path? And when you're in school, there's the attention that you want, right? You want attention, you want people to recognize you so that you can elevate, your learning or just elevate whatever it is, your brand,
to believe in you, right?
To believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You said something that I think is important to drill into a little more. And you mentioned something about how with women, you were noticing it more with women. And then that was, you kind of said we have a no gossip policy. The way you were sort of approaching it, because that's, there are like rules and regulation, right? And then there's things that we want to become more intrinsic, that it's just, I don't know if it's a social norm. We all have social contracts. Like we all live on one planet and we all work in a region. And that is a human on the other side of it. And if we live in a world that we feel we have to be in constant judgment, especially in today's world, and you were probably seeing this as social media was coming out, right? Like as you're in your career, once we had, websites and social media and people just feeding into this, like what have you, this is a question I still struggle with even asking. How were you able to help them sort of see that humanity piece a little more of the woman on the other side that they were working with, to beyond the really, like you said, I'm going to write you up, right? You're going to go through the regulation piece. How was that transition embraced? Like, I'm sure it took time and everybody was different, but like, before we do get into kind of your focus with the construction industry, like what were some of those experiences like for you in helping women navigate that piece?
It actually becomes, between myself, the instructors, the spot coordinator. So we've all got to be on the same page. And we all have to be agreeing on the way that we want to handle and treat situations. And mostly hiring people with heart was my thing, right? So if you've got your heart still and it has not been buried and lost, then you will be able to communicate and handle these mostly young ladies, although we did have second career ladies coming in, etc. That part is crucial because developing those people skills, those human skills, those communication skills, then allows for them to be in an environment where they feel respected, right? You treat people with respect and you treat them with, like, you really want them to succeed and you're on their side. That translates to the next person, translates to the next person. So all of a sudden you've got a cluster of women that are all feeling and thinking and treating each other at a level where you become the best you can be, because that's what you want for each other. So you celebrate when they do well. You help when they're not doing that well in a certain area and you're good at it, for example. Another example I'll give you, when we had potential students coming to the school, the procedure was that they would have a complimentary manicure and a pedicure in the spa area where the students actually are doing their practical. And that would be their opportunity to speak to the students and ask questions about the school. That was one of my favorite marketing tools because the honesty from the student to the potential students was available for them to discuss whatever they like. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, when the student would enroll, the estheticians that were doing their manicure pedicure, for example, were so excited to bring them in because they were part of it. They were accountable for making this person successful as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the sense of pride and being able to utilize the lived experience of the students to draw on bringing other students in, right? I think is a powerful part, because I always think about the construction industry. Obviously, that's what we're gonna dive into. Your next phase, we have an image issue, and I've talked about it a lot with other guests. Like the construction industry has an image issue, and that's whether you're male or female. Like the image isn't just one image issue; it is a multi-layered, multifaceted issue that we need to address, because we're all proud of what we design. We're all proud of what we build. We're all the best messengers to get the next generation to want to come into an industry. But if the experience that we have in our businesses and in a project and what an owner feels is not good, like then it's really going to be poor marketing, because that's where the gossip starts. That's where the frustration starts, as you were saying. So like, I do think that is a powerful connection piece that you're probably bringing forth in your work, is like, hey, like we want people to have a good experience, not only as students, but you're about to go out into the world and have clients. And if those clients don't feel that you are passionate about what you're doing and you are the brand, you are the market for your work and your team's work, or the project team's work, or whatever layer, like then no one's going to want to, come to do what a lot of the women that you've been working with. And then fast forward to the work you're doing today, no one's going to want to hire that team because they're not going to want a bad experience. So let's fast forward then up to, I know it hasn't been this year, and it hasn't only been a couple years, I think, since you started kind of diving in and understanding the construction industry, but you've also have your own lived experience of hearing about it. So get us to the point where you mentioned your partner has been in construction for 35 plus years, and that relationship in your last, decade has given you stories. It's just giving you've shared information with one another. What was it within those, that time frame, those 10 years, 10 plus years, whatever it was, that you were starting to say, there's a lot of similarity here? Were there little sparks that were kind of coming up as you were talking through those things?
I definitely was very inspired when he would share stories about women on site. And for example, one story was that a lady was pregnant. She's a welder, and she was eating McDonald's every day. And the guys were so worried for her that they started bringing her lunch. I loved it.
Nice. Yeah.
Right? Those days too. We're not even talking, we're talking like even like maybe 15, 20 years ago, which is great because she was one of the first on site at that time. I mean, it's increased quite a bit now. It's still very petite, but the pioneers, the first ones, what they went through was really hard. A story like that made me very, very heartfelt good. But there's the other side where there's another person, for example, that really gave her a horrible time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a for real horrible time that this lady had to experience through this individual and push through it because of her commitment, her decision, because she's going to have a family. She needs to make her money. And interestingly enough, that particular person at this stage, maybe in the past 5 years or so, actually went to apologize to her. I love that story. So when you're saying what stories is he sharing with me? I mean, I'm getting what his day was about, and particularly what has inspired me to participate in the work that I'm doing is his belief in me that there is a place for me in the construction industry to assist in creating culture for women to not be so against each other as well. Unite them.
Those two sides of the story there are so important for us to pause as humans. One, to have the self-awareness of teams, to see this woman who is pregnant and bringing her, I'm sure, healthier food, like trying to do what they could, was a very supportive. And that trickles, right? Like once you experience someone doing something good for you, like we all begin to like change. Like internally, we start to think differently. We bring ourselves to work differently, or whatever environment we're in, to recognize the human. And if someone's having a bad day, you feel it, then that suddenly shifts you into a bad day. And I think as you're telling that story, like to be able to have the self-awareness of this, I don't want to call it guilt. It's just probably an awakening or an interruption of a pattern that they found themselves in, to realize like, I've done something that I'm not proud of and I want to address it. And I think that's what we don't slow down enough in our industry, because we don't want to talk about feelings and emotion. Why? Like what? You're human. Like you're going to have it. Like you're going to go through every emotion. Like you're not just like, I don't know who watches the show Severance, but like you can't just erase your mind, like walking into work and then turning it back on and forgetting what you did in work. Your work's going to go with you and your life's going to go with you. So when you bring the whole self to work, like you're carrying whatever stress and or, emotion that you're coming from home with. Same thing when you take it home from the job. So these stories are important, and I'm sure there's obviously a lot more, but so those things were coming up in your conversations. So take us to the point where you said, I think there's more I can do. And how did that come about? And then we'll talk about really those things that you're aiming, to really help women with, and some of the programs and discussions you've been having. But what, like that point in time where you're like, you know what, I'm going to take all my lived experience and I'm going to help the construction industry. What was that moment like for you? And how did you go about learning more about construction industry?
I was very fortunate that Eddie, that's his name, has really created incredible relationships with most people that he works with, and particularly with women because of his nature. So it was a friendship that they had created. So they were always supporting each other, helping each other, making sure if this job was ending, give a reference to the next person. So I had the opportunity to meet them, spend time with them, and talk to them. And in that process, the realization that they are so alone and they don't have a connection really touched me and made me feel that, there's got to be something more for these women to be able to participate in this industry and not be the outsider.
Yeah. This episode of Activating Curiosity is brought to you by New Life Accounting. NLA is a construction-specific firm that provides bookkeeping, controller, and advisory services to commercial contractors. So whether you are struggling to stay on top of that job costing, manage the cash flow, or make big picture investment decisions in your business, their team will help you find financial clarity. For our listeners, they are offering a free diagnostic service. That's a $500 value. This diagnostic takes a look at your current financials to help you identify areas for improvement. Plus, it's a perfect opportunity to get an expert's advice on those most pressing accounting questions. To get your diagnostic scheduled, start by booking an intro call through the link in the show notes and tell them Ryan sent you. What were some of the things, and again, we talk about 14 percenters, right? So there's 4% of basically trades, I think. And the data is going to continue to change as we have, retirements and other things happening. But 14% of the workforce within construction, that's probably 10% office, 4% in the field. Were you seeing, and maybe this is more from the field side, that the stories were sort of coming in, but I think the same holds true to the story that you just said about the pregnant woman. And I think about the office and my time in the industry, like, we haven't made it the best that we can, whether it's in the trades or in the office for women, and that experience, as you said, to make it the best experience, to make them seen, to make them not feel alone. And men can do a lot of things, can sponsor, but I think a lot of men don't know even how to ask the right questions. What are some things that you've seen and heard maybe from Ed and others, like, of ways that you can really sponsor, like how women can sponsor other women, but men can sponsor women to really help get rid of that loneliness, or help make the connection, or help when something, isn't the best culture that it can be, not only for women, but for everybody involved? Like, have there been things that have come up for you during your educational journey on this?
I feel like the question that you're asking is, what are the possible solutions?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, so things like, they don't have to be solutions, but just things you were noticing of, like, I think some men are afraid to say something, or some men, even like, they're afraid they're going to get judged from other men if they do certain things. I'm just curious, like, have you seen some of that, or just things that you're thinking about that can help us do this, like help provide a better culture, right? Help provide some of these.
I guess it would be on site in the office are two different worlds very much, although it's the construction world. And on site, what I've seen is they really appreciating the skills that women can bring. So the detailed work, the tedious work they'd refer to. And when the relationships come in a healthy way together, that means that if it's heavy pipe and she can't carry it, that's no problem. Because I'd rather do that and have her take care of all of the administrative, for example, at the end of the day, or the detail of the welding that has to occur. So I think that part is very helpful for them as far as evolving and it getting better. In the office, it's about women having each other's backs as well, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just such different environments, not only physically, but even mentally. But the challenges are very much the same, where they can feel very isolated in a boardroom because they're only female that's there.
Say a little more about, like, supporting one another. Like, you may be the only female in that executive room, but not the only female in the office. Like, are you noticing, as you're going through your journey, right, to get to the work that you're doing from your past experience, like, that that has become like more of an aha moment of how maybe women are supportive of one another in office, and what are some things that you're thinking about as it relates to that to help with that experience, that culture?
Um, I definitely don't think it's a separate issue between the men and the women, but I do think that there is a degree of support if organized and being creative on how to bring that into the culture of that particular office. And training and development is just incredibly powerful. And what I'm talking about is training and development in people skills, human skills, communication skills, relationship skills, how to apologize properly, how to say you don't know how to do something and not be afraid, and not feel that you have to be on pins and needles because somebody is going to not have your back but stab your back. So if you could remove all of that and create a place where they feel connected to each other, right? Because all of
Yeah.
those words mean that there's a connection there.
Yeah.
And that means that if if there's two women in a boardroom and one woman really loses her train of thought or stumbles or she feels intimidated or she's not really comfortable to speak up or have a voice, that you could look at that other woman and she'll give you a little wink or like a blink and say, I got your back. Don't worry. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get that boost, right?
Yeah.
And you feel like, okay, I'm gonna open up and I'm going to have a voice and I'm going to express myself.
Yeah. Well, man, the amount of times I've lost my train of thought, like in meetings, like what are we, like if that's the worst thing, I think we want everybody to feel comfortable. That's psychological safety, not only in a conference room, but in everyday environment. And what I mean by that, it is that no judgment. It is you're not going to, and most of the time it's our own human belief, right? Our limiting beliefs come into play here where we're saying like, I'm not going to speak up because I might be embarrassed if I'm wrong. Or, last time I said something, my last experience at my last job, like it did not go well when I spoke up. So I'm going to sit quiet. And leaders have to create that space to allow people to say something. And even if that opens the dialogue, asking deeper questions, you may not go in the direction that somebody else thinks, but like you can't have a bunch of yes people in a business. You need people bringing different lived experiences to help you grow your business. So for me, when I think about it, like having women in leadership was so important because there were just things like, I didn't know, like as a man, like there are just things I don't know. And I mean, just not thousands, probably millions of things, right? But like, I need people to feel comfortable to say it without any judgment, retaliation, any of those things that they might be concerned about. And that's what you're talking about, is creating those environments. I think about kind of going back into the office and supporting one another. It's the culture has always been like, you mentioned training, like we can all learn. And what you're discussing is this, and I know you've termed it invisible PPE. So I want to drill into that. I think it's so important because the industry does not, like, we term it. And I don't know why we've ever termed this soft skills. I hate it. I say it all the time.
Yeah.
Like the most difficult thing a human will ever figure out how to navigate is the human complexity of themselves and other people. So if you can't like figure that out, the technical stuff comes. But you're focused in an area that you are bringing up, mental health, the psychological safety, emotional intelligence, and things that leaders are going to need, human connection, things from the heart and feeling like you're belonging, right? All of those things are so critical as a human. And you are now working with a group of people who are about, you got to grind through it. They're under pressure. Everything is under pressure, and I do not have time to think and feel these things. So as that outside influencer, what has that experience been like for you, and how are you seeing people sort of get their own curiosity or open up or not open up, as it relates to some of these conversations?
The conversation I was having last night with Eddie that he really brought to my attention again was what you just said, the lack of time. So the things that we're talking about right now with regards to developing personal skills to be able to communicate with others, to build the relationships, to have that connection. That doesn't just happen by itself, right? It, it requires some guidance. It requires, and it's not like whatever it is that I'm going to talk about is going to be something that's never been talked about before, and that I've come up with like things that I think are going to be these things already exist, and actually most of them are pretty basic. It's just a matter of bringing them to the surface where leaders absolutely bring themselves back to a point where they're recognizing that they are leading people, and that to be a great leader is to understand your people and to know where your people are at, what their strengths are, what their blind spots are, and how to make them be able to communicate with each other so that they bring out the best in each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds very simple. It's not that easy to do, but it is a matter of organizing yourself. And organizing yourself, what I mean is you're making it important in that particular month, or once a month, you're going to be scheduling something that's got to do with, let's just call it, connection station. That's what we're doing. We're connecting. So whether you've got a facilitator, whether you've got somebody that actually is able to do that works in the HR or whatever the case might be, that they're gathering people in a heartfelt way and making sure that they are providing an environment for people to let their hair down, for people to have a great conversation about one of the challenges that they face, and also recognizing people, right? So
Yeah.
not recognizing them because you're checking a box, but literally like recognizing people for the contribution that they've made.
Yeah. Well, and the time thing we talk about a lot with a lot of people in this industry, and that's a self-inflicted wound. Like, one, we've known a labor force was shrinking for 50 plus years. We didn't really take action on it. And as women, with bringing, more women into the labor force and into the office, like we need women to help us build. We need technology. We need different delivery models. We need, methods of construction. Like, all those things have to be true. There isn't one answer, but as you're talking about with the time, it's, if we're going to be willing to spend money on training to learn a new technical skill,
right,
then we better be willing to understand, like, we have to invest side by side with these things, the human piece that you're talking about. Because change initiatives or training, like, those things fail to meet their objective 70% of the time. So we're already spending money. We're not seeing an ROI in the soft skills that we want to label soft skills. We're not seeing the ROI in the human complexity piece in our industry. This is my opinion. It's all being chewed up, and we're losing that profitability because we're not addressing it. Like, we can spend all we want on new technology. We can spend all we want on new processes. We can spend all we want on frameworks and all of these things. It is struggling because of the things that you're bringing to light. Like, the things that you're talking about, that interruption of pattern, are the human piece. Like, the humans have to be able to navigate this. They have to be able to see this. And it's, not only it doesn't need a title, right? Like, you don't have to be in the C-suite to be recognizing some of these things. Like, leaders are at all levels of the company, right?
right.
And as you said, it's like there's noticing the moments, the awareness of a woman who was pregnant, and noticing, like, the fact that they're noticing what she's eating. That didn't take any extra, like, you're already burning energy. It took nothing extra to notice it, right?
I have another story. I want to make sure I share. It's actually my favorite Eddie story. When he was an apprentice, and then we're going to bring this back to women. When he was an apprentice, he was very blessed and fortunate to work with an incredible foreman. And why was he incredible? Eddie was afraid of heights. And this gentleman, one lunch hour, took the time and had another person sit next to Eddie and put Eddie in the middle, and spent the entire lunch hour having Eddie look down to overcome his fear and to reassure him, we're here, we're next to you. Nothing's going to happen, Eddie. You're going to be okay. And now he has no problem with heights. This man did not take the time to do that, to care, to help this young man, right? To overcome one obstacle that these days, from what I hear, it would be more like, get rid of him. That doesn't work.
Right, right. Like this, we can't solve this problem, and or it goes into the judgment and the embarrassment. And I got to point this out. We got to point it out every single day, which is not working either. Like what what we know is not working is the process of breaking people down. Right. That's not working anymore. Every project has them. You know, the decisions nobody planned on making, a coordination issue surfaces, an RFI gets written, a field condition that changes the original approach. Most of the time, these aren't failures. They're simply the result of multiple systems and multiple trades trying to come together later in the process. That's one of the reasons this episode is sponsored by Overcast Innovations. Their team believes many of those coordination conversations should happen much earlier when project teams still have more flexibility, more options, and fewer constraints. By integrating building systems into a coordinated ceiling solution, they're helping reduce the complexity that often creates those last-minute decisions in the first place. Learn more by visiting overcastinnovations.com.
When you're recruiting women into the industry, and there's just so much money being spent on this, right? There's so much investment from the government to like get as many women in as possible. It's pretty obvious and intense everywhere.
Right.
My concern is, are you preparing them for what they're really getting into? Because when people don't know what to do with their lives or they're lost, it's pretty easy to influence them into getting into something like a trade, which is okay, but you got to do the follow through where you're literally helping these people understand what the process of the industry is like.
Yeah.
So when you've got, I think it's like in AA, they have sponsors, right? They have like somebody they can always call.
Yeah. Yeah.
This would be a really smart thing for organizations to do once they've got women entering the industry, that there is somebody there that they can always call and communicate with regarding the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having the sponsorship internal, and I think maybe even beyond that layer, like that's for the, that's the individual that's stepping in. But there's also an important layer of like everyone recognizing like how they can change the experience and culture for this person, but also for themselves and everyone involved. Right. But like every human has a lived experience. Every human has something, I'm sure, that we fear, that we see as a challenge, or we just can't, believe we can't do, like all of those things. So like, it's just going to open up a world of like growth and opportunity where we're seeing an exodus because, as you described, we bring women into construction, and the experience isn't what was sold. It is like something totally different.
You got to build it up slowly, right? And once they've made such a big decision, once they're in, once they're committed to trying, then, you kind of extend your hand and sort of like help them up, help them keep going, and not abandon the situation or expect that they're going to be able to deal with the level of difficulties that they may experience. Prepare them.
Yeah. Well, and it's not an event, right? Like the onboarding experience is not a one-time event where they come in on their first day, you say some things and move on. Like that, the lived experience of the person in whatever role is happening every single day. And as time goes on, situations are going to change. Like you're saying, it's like you have to build this into the culture. It has to become intrinsic. It has to become something that like awareness it's a practice. It's something that you're seeing every single day. You can't just, you can't just say, hey, I went and got one training and that's it. I don't think I have to revisit this again. That's not how the human mind is going to work, right? You don't have time. You don't have time to think about it. You got your own issues, your own problems, and those things, like people won't do something or won't help somebody because they're like, I don't have time to do it. So I'll just do what I'm supposed to train them to do or whatever. And it's like, that's not solving it. That's a barrier that you've put up for stepping back, pausing for a second, as you're saying, like help and pulling somebody up. Not even pulling them, just give them enough balance to like get through that next step. So
what you're referring to is, from what I'm hearing, is everything is so intensely time structured and deadlines that if somebody is asking, well, why am I doing it like this? They will get the answer of, don't worry about it, just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're not learning.
No.
So those that have all the knowledge, that were fortunate enough from one generation to the next generation that it was passed on like a baton, that part is missing as well. So it's not only the human skill that needs to be looked at, because we are definitely all just human, and people are not made to be as tough as they used to be either. They're just not.
Yeah. Well, and the work environment has changed. What you just said is like so important for us to remember, like the world has changed in 25, 50 years, right? Even 100 years ago, this is 26. We're not even 100 years from the Great Depression. And what had to happen during that time period to World War II, right? Like to the second industrialized revolution to now we're in the fourth, right? Like all of these transitions that have occurred, our relationship with work and what is required of us physically, mentally is shifting, which is becoming more human. We're not all running machine, like we're not all off by ourselves running a machine. We are working with other humans to solve problems, which requires us to have active listening, which requires us to provide space that you're talking about and safety to teach and to learn from one another, to ask deeper questions, to say like, what has changed since this person or that person learned that is now being passed on to me, because it may work today, but that seems to be a roadblock or a hurdle to advancement of something else. So I'm interested in your thoughts of this, because you're really, you've done your studies, you've kind of developed your business, you're out talking with people, you're presenting, and how do you see, the future? Like, when you think about it, like, what is your ideal state of the future as you're working with teams and women? How do you think, as technology is coming in and those sorts of things, like this increases in importance for people to focus on?
I really think about it like baby steps. So it's just a matter of having the desire to make a difference from one person to the next person to the next person. And what my desire would be is that they have each other's backs, that there's enough room on the beam, right? Like the beam, there's enough room. Yeah. It doesn't have to just be that once you get, a seat at the table, you're thinking that I better protect this seat, not let anybody else come near this seat. The opposite thinking would be like, come on over. There's lots of room for us. And by supporting each other and helping each other, the power that they will be able to acquire for themselves and the opportunities that they will be able to acquire for themselves by making men their allies as well. Because, the whole part with the women is very real. They've got those challenges. They're dealing with situations that men don't have to deal with. And it can be very, very making them very insecure about whether or not they're secure in their job or if their opinion is good enough. But then again, if we look at the male side, why is the male suicide so high in the construction industry? That freaked me right out.
Right.
Oh my God, am I even nicer when he comes home now? I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Right? Like, holy smokes, they have tough days. If we've got the majority male-dominated industry that was created by men from the start, if those levels of emotions are primarily anger, frustration, just sort of like a pressure cooker that's going to go any minute, it's even more difficult for the females to maybe integrate into these types of stronger personalities when they have, more of the male side of anger, let's just call it, right? Or domination. I think it's up to the women to unite. And I also think that it's up to them to start teaching them.
Yeah.
Right? Start teaching them on just emotional empathy, compassion. Teach them slowly. They're all aware of it. It's just a matter of having to make it, if the recognition, that culture environment that creates people, that supports people in every way to become the best they can be. I believe that the quality of life for those people, the quality of life for the leaders, right? Because life is not that long. It's kind of short. And being like, a bully or being angry all the time is really pretty sad when you're at work 90% of the time. But in addition to that, when you are getting the best from people and you're getting the loyalty from the customer, you're getting the loyalty from the clients, you're getting the loyalty because there is a respect and a bond there that the culture has created, the money's going to come.
Right.
The numbers are going to be there. They might actually be way better because you're not going through the turnover, this, and creating that instability where people are always afraid that they're going to lose their job. And one of the hardest things that I think on-site people have experienced that I've learned and I've heard about is the next job. They're not really sure when that job is going to finish, but they're always looking for the next job.
Yeah, they do. The site doesn't get all of the information a lot of times internally that executives get as they're starting to think about the pipeline, right? As you're building out that budget, which comes back to something you said earlier, like communication, like how to communicate. Not like if you've got a Harvard degree, you don't have to speak like you're from Harvard. Not everybody's from Harvard. So break it down in a form that everybody in the trades can understand, like those things that are top of mind for them that are causing them stress, that are causing them those issues and concerns like you're talking about with the suicide rate. Like we'll spend a lot of time and a lot of money solving an issue with a piece of equipment or software or technology. And if we're not willing as leaders and teams to see a human who is going through something and not providing that space, like that person is going to be running a machine. That person might be out running equipment. And we talk about site safety all the time.
Right.
But site safety is not just a physical thing.
Right.
It is mental. And we can go through life like being there, but not being there. Like
right.
we can, things are moving so fast that we're just not fully aware of what we're doing, which could cause ourselves harm or others. So being able to be in your best cognitive state where you are focused and you are going at the speed that's necessary for whatever it is you're doing, like that's a mental thing that we should be working on as teams and individuals. That shouldn't make us feel lesser of a person because we have to address it. So Dina, is there something maybe that I haven't asked you or something that you really want listeners to kind of hear before we wrap up today? Is there something that we haven't been able to address?
Just on the note that you've shared right now, what we don't see doesn't mean it's not happening. So, PPE is crucial. It's come a long way. I-PPE is really about the essential things that people need to be safe. And once that is also just as important, PPE, right? And then we've got invisible stuff that you can't see. So if you're giving them the stuff to wear on the outside, but you're also starting to be creative and wanting to learn as an organization and find the right people that could participate in the human side, which is the invisible stuff. And then you put it together, that's as safe as somebody's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And somebody is we all go through shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's way bigger than we even think we can handle. I've been there a few times and, I hope it doesn't happen too often, but it's real, but it's made me the person that I am as well. And recognizing that this is what life is. People go through stuff. They're not going to just be robots that come to work and they're able to have this mask that everybody else feels is the right. Masks are really they're not that great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're not authentic, right? You can't be your whole self. And if you can't be authentic self, then you're caring more about what somebody else thinks versus your own feeling, the way that you're able to think about yourself, your life, your career and what you want, right? And we can talk about selfish and unselfish, but you got to fix yourself. Like you have to have the opportunity to say like, it's okay for me to have this conversation. It's okay for me to be talking with somebody. And as you're talking about the future, what I'm hopeful is that we start to recognize like situations have changed. And we need to stop applying the same formulas that we always had in this industry to think that's how we solve problems, because they're different. The humans that are coming into the workforce are going to be different than us, and that's okay. It can feel uncomfortable. You have multi-generational. You got baby boomers who are starting to exited or they've retired. Gen X is just starting to retire. I'm a little younger Gen X, but like I've got to go through my 50s and then to retirement. I've experienced a lot as a Gen Xer, but as the next two generations really come in, I don't know what their lived experiences is. I don't know what they've gone through. I know my kids, I kind of understand them, but not everybody has had certain things. So if we're not willing to pause, if we're not willing to listen to those things that you're talking about, if we're not willing to look for the invisible, then we're just applying the wrong formula to find solutions to help. So
yes, you need to give them tools. You need to give them a culture that they feel that they belong and that they feel that they're safe. And if they don't have that, then retention becomes very challenging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I know we could probably go on forever here, Dina. I love the conversation because I think it's one where we just have to, again, cause an interruption to our patterns. And, as myself and all those listening or whomever, like we have to understand that when it gets interrupted, like we can pause for a moment to see things that we weren't seeing before. Things suddenly, the fog lifts, like things slow down a little bit and we start to realize the pace of time versus what we're constantly feeling and the pressure of those projects. So I appreciate the time. I'm so grateful you were able to come on, Dina, and have the conversation on activating curiosity.
My pleasure too. Thank you so much. I loved it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing all the work that you're doing. Have a great day.
Yes, you as well.
So that's the episode with Dina Fodero. She is based in Toronto, Canada. I was looking forward to this conversation, like I said early on. Like she is an outside influencer, and we can learn to embrace outside influencers who are bringing their experience to make it better for ourselves and others as we think about the image that we want to portray and leave and put into practice for the construction industry and the next generation that is coming in. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you continue to look for those things that you're saying, hey, I see a problem and I would love to spend some time navigating through it and learning more about it so that I can help address it. So until next time, continue to activate your curiosity and activate curiosity within others. The Activating Curiosity podcast is brought to you by Connective Consulting Group and Connective Coaching, part of the Curiosity Building Experiences. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss a conversation. Share the podcast with your network and help us bring more curiosity into the construction industry. Interested in becoming a guest or a sponsor? Visit us at activatingcuriosity.com for more details. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity. One of the themes that keeps showing up in conversations across the AEC industry is this. Many of our biggest challenges don't start in the field. They start much earlier. The farther decisions travel through a project before teams coordinate around them, the harder they become to change. That's why Overcast Innovations is focused on bringing architects, engineers, contractors, and owners together earlier around integrated building solutions. Because when coordination improves earlier in the process, teams spend less time reacting and more time delivering on the original vision. Overcast Innovations believes stagnation is the enemy of innovation. And sometimes innovation starts by simply asking the right question sooner. Learn more at overcastinnovations.com.